So as of 3 weeks ago, I've officially graded with the 3 biggest video game companies, WATA, VGA, as well as the new and upcoming CGC. In today's video, we're going to be doing like a comprehensive breakdown of every single aspect that has to do with video game grading, and I'm going to give you guys my opinion on which company does what best. Let's get into it. Alright, so the first step in every grading submission is the actual submission process, which is you logging onto the website and filling out their forms. My number one pick for this process would definitely be WATA. The reason I say this is because number one, their website is so aesthetically pleasing. It's really well made. It's really smooth. The step-by-step process that they guide you through in the submission process is really clear, and in my opinion, it benefits both the beginner and the expert. Right under that, I would definitely place CGC as the second best. I think that CGC does a really good job of streamlining the process. However, the website does look a little bit dated. They also have a step-by-step process. However, I do think that the navigation and just the overall experience is just not as aesthetic. And although they both cater to both the experienced and the beginner, I think that WATA just does a really good job of making the presentation just feel a little bit more premium. Now, lastly, I would definitely say is VGA. VGA, man, is like the BGS of video games. Like, I don't know what they're really doing over there. Their website is so dated. It looks like it's literally a 2004-2005 web page. The submission process is super annoying. Like, the forms that you have to fill out, it's just a huge headache, and I don't recommend it for anybody. But yeah, that's pretty much the submission process. If you guys want a video on how to submit your video games, I can do a video for that to show you guys basically the step-by-step in video form. But I would definitely say WATA's number one, CGC is a close second, and then VGA is trailing way behind. Now, before we get to the next topic, I do want to add in the fact that CGC is the only one out of the 3 that actually requires a membership for you to submit through them. WATA and VGA don't require this. So in terms of price and cost, I think that CGC is just a little bit more expensive from the get-go. However, if you submit a lot of games, that initial investment that you made to get the membership will be spread out across the submissions. So that's the submission process. Let's get into the cost. So for cost, it does vary a little bit with like the size of the game that you're grading and stuff like that, but for this one we're just going to go with the standard Game Boy and Game Boy Advance. The reason I say this is because these are some of the few games that in my opinion should be graded. In my opinion, graded PlayStation 2 games are not really worth it because like they're made out of plastic, right? Like, what are you actually grading here, right? So with these ones, they're just a lot easier to damage, so it makes more sense to have these being graded as they are made of cardboard. We're going to go with the lowest tier possible because we're talking to collectors here, and they always like to save as much money as possible. There's no reason to give these big companies any more money than they need to. Now, the cheapest in this category would definitely go to CGC. They charge around $40 to $50 a game. Next up would be WATA Games. They charge around $50 at the base price, and it goes up from there based on like the value of your games and stuff like that. And then lastly is VGA again, and they charge like $90 to submit a standard size game. In what world is that okay when you guys are literally losing market share every single day? Like, I don't really understand like how they're able to justify these types of prices when their competitors are charging like pretty much half of the price that they're asking. So yeah, I really don't know what VGA is doing here, but they charge pretty much double what regular people charge, and in my opinion, they aren't really worth it. I'm also gonna lump in the turnaround times with the cost because I think that the cost does affect like how long you're gonna have to wait. But at the lowest levels, I would definitely say CGC is the fastest, and it's not even really close. Like, I had my WATA games sitting there for almost a year to get graded. VGA, a year to get graded. I got my CGC ones back in like a month. Now, it could be because CGC is newer and not a lot of people are submitting through them. But hey, to me, it just means that CGC is really good value for the money. And the reason I say that is because CGC is not just some scrub company. They are extremely professional. They have a great product. And in my opinion, just because the market is not accepting them right now, it doesn't mean that there's no accepting them in the future. A lot of people said the same thing about Pokemon cards, and yet look at where we are today. Alright, so now the submission process is pretty much done. We paid for it, we sent our stuff off, and now we're getting them back. And I want to discuss the grading harshness of each of these companies. Now, if you want a very thorough breakdown of the philosophies of how these companies grade, I'm going to leave a link in the description for a great video that breaks all of this down. Shout out to Get the Greg Games. Your content is absolutely fantastic and I watch all your videos. But here's my quick thoughts on my experience having graded with every single one of these companies. Alright, so for this category, you could say that harshness is a really good thing, and then some other people would say it's a really bad thing, right? In my personal opinion, I think the harsher you are, the better it is. However, you do have to be fair. You can't be harsh just to be harsh. And in this industry, the most strict video game grading company is by far VGA. With VGA, if you get a very high grade, you know you are going to get a very high quality specimen for the respective video game. I would argue though that they are a little too harsh, where they are almost not fair to a point, because sometimes I see them grade like 85 plus when a game clearly deserves 90 plus. I have submitted over 25 games with them and I've only received 195, and it really was a perfect game. Like, I do have to commend them for that because they gave it the grade it deserved. It was basically a pack fresh Pokemon Ruby that I ripped right out of the blister, and it was flawless. However, I did rip out some other games from blisters that were not as perfect as the Pokemon Ruby. However, they got way lower than what I expected. Like, for example, this Pokemon Red was right out of a blister case. This thing was like pretty much immaculate. There was very little wrong with it. However, it got the 85 plus. In my opinion, I think that this is an easy 90 plus, but yet VGA didn't think so. So I definitely think VGA is by far the harshest. If you get a very high grade, you know your game deserves it. However, on the flip side, if you do get a low graded game, it might not be that your game actually deserves it. Next up in terms of harshness, I would definitely say is CGC. I think CGC is pretty much midway. I would definitely say that they are the fairest of the three grading companies, where I think WATA is too easy and I think VGA is a little too harsh. I think CGC sits right in the middle. I recently graded my Case Fresh DDS. You can check that video on my YouTube channel. I graded two of these. One of them got the 9.88 plus, and then the other one got the 9.6. Now, there wasn't too much difference between the two, so I would have liked 9.8 for both. However, because they got pretty much like the highest grades that you can get, I'm okay with it. I don't expect, like, perfect on every single thing I submit. However, I did want them to, throw me a bone and give me that 9.8 for both of them. And for the last place, I would definitely say that WATA is the easiest company to grade with. For example, like this 9.8 Pokemon Ruby A++, which is basically max grade for WATA, does not come anywhere near how clean the 95 VGA Pokemon Ruby that I submitted. Like, the highest grade for VGA is way better quality than the highest grade for WATA, in my opinion. Another testament to this is the fact that I submitted an 85 Ruby crossover to WATA games, and that ended up getting the 9.4 A+. Like, 85 is so low on the VGA scale. Like, there's so much above it. There's 85 plus, 90, 90 plus, 95, 95 plus 100. Like, for the Ruby to get 9.4, which is basically 2 ticks down from the highest that you can get, I definitely think if it got a 9 or 8.8 or whatever the next lowest thing is, I would say it's actually more fair than the grade that it got. But WATA judged how they judged, and in my opinion, I think they're just a little bit too easy. So if you are a video game flipper, I would definitely think about using WATA to maximize your profits. However, if you are a collector, I would definitely go towards picking up VGA or CGC games if you want the highest quality specimen. That's pretty much the grading scale and the harshness. Let's just say we got our games back from these companies. Let's take a deeper look at the cases, the labels, and how they present overall. Alright, so this is my 3 specimens that I brought out for this video. We have an 85 plus near mint Pokemon Red with the white ESRB logo. Let me know if you guys want a video on all the Pokemon game versions. I think that would make a very interesting type of coverage, because I don't really see a lot of these on YouTube. And then there's the WATA 9.8 A++ Pokemon Ruby, and then I have a 9.8 A+ Dark Duel Stories from Yu-Gi-Oh! As you can see, they're all Game Boy games, because as I said before, before. I only really think that cardboard boxes should be like gradable. I don't really see the point in grading like PS2 games or something like that because it's a plastic shell, right? It's not going to get damaged as easily. But without further ado, let's get into the first thing that you're going to notice when you pick these games up when you got them back freshly graded from the grading companies. We're going to start off with protection and durability. And the first company that we're going to cover is the WATA. So I have to say right off the bat, this thing is built like a tank. Honestly, I'm super impressed with the build quality. Everything feels super premium. It doesn't feel flimsy at all. I just think that it's built extremely well, and I think that it does a really good job of protecting the games. In my opinion, out of all three companies, I think this one does the best job at protecting the game. However, I do have to say, like, the design is not really to my liking. I think it looks very much like a garbage can. I don't know if you guys can see what I'm saying, like where this is the lid. But again, this is the design that they chose, and they've done it pretty good job. I do have to note though that because this is made of acrylic, at least the bottom part is, I'm not sure if this part is acrylic, but this part definitely is. You're gonna see that there is a cast line here, but it is on all of them. I personally would have liked for them to deal with this, but they're not really like an acrylic company. They're more of a grading company. I get the shortcomings, but I just personally would have gone the extra mile. But yeah, that's pretty much the WATA protection. Let's get into the oldest video game grading company, which is VGA. And with this one, I can tell you right off the bat, the acrylic that they use here is a lot clearer than these two right here. And it feels a lot more durable. Like, the acrylic is just a little bit thicker. I'm not saying that it protects the games better than something like these two, for example, because this is glued together. Like you can see here with the system that they built in this one, like there's kind of like a clip on, and the way that it's put together, it's not held together by just super glue, right? The super glue aspect does make you worry a little bit. And then also, now that I'm looking at it, I mean, it has a lot of stain marks there all around the borders where it was put together. I feel like they could have done a better job with this. I think if they made the whole thing into one piece and then just the back as a separate piece, instead of, you know, making like this part one piece and then this part one piece, this is one piece and then this is one piece, I think it would have looked a lot better, is what I would have done at least. But I do have to say though, like in terms of viewability, this one is far clearer. I mean, you can even see it in the video right here. You can see like this is a lot brighter. These two are a lot more dim. And again, I think it has to do with the acrylic. I would say that it might be because it's closer to the, you know, the front of the thing. But again, these ones, they are just as close. I just think that the acrylic that they used here is a lot more clear. It's a lot more glass-like, while these feel a lot more plasticky. Now for form factor, I think that this is the best form factor out of any of these games. I don't really like the lip at the top of the thing. I like it feeling like just an oversized game, if that makes sense. Like if you're holding the Pokemon game, it's gonna feel very geometrical, and I feel like this case captures that feeling a lot better than these two right here. It feels like you're just holding like an oversized game, if that makes sense. I don't know how to explain it. This definitely feels the best out of any of these, and I think that it has the best form factor, that's for sure. However, in terms of durability, I actually did manage to drop one of these in the past, and unfortunately cracked right away. Like it broke right away. The game fell out and everything got destroyed. So in terms of protection, there's not a lot of drop protection on this, but that is a trade-off for like the amazing viewability of this case compared to these other ones. Like these ones, yeah, they might protect your game from drops, but you can't really display them as nicely as you can display this. I mean, this is crystal clear, man. Like it's almost like there's no case at all. It's really, really nice. I absolutely love these VGA acrylics. So that's that. And then we get to the newest company, which is CGC. I actually am a fan of CGC graded cards because of that crystal clear viewability. However, with the video game cases, like I said earlier, they do have a little bit of dullness to them. They don't look as crispy as their cards or their comic books. Actually, somebody that works for CGC commented on my mail day video where I opened this game up, and he said that it's because they're adding a lot more protection when compared to like the cards. And I get it. I mean, I appreciate that, but I feel like they could have done a little bit more to make it pop, if that makes sense. I don't really like the form factor here. It's just like WATA. I like it better than WATA. Look, this definitely feels less bulky, but it doesn't feel as like, you know, crispy or smooth as like the VGA case, man. Like this feels so nice in the hand, man. Like it feels great. I don't like the way that these other ones feel in the hand. But in terms of durability, I would definitely say that it feels more solid than something like the VGA case. However, it's not as rugged as the WATA, that's for sure. Like, I mean, this thing feels like a tank, no joke. Like it doesn't feel like anything can happen to this game inside of this case, but there are trade-offs to the industrial aspect of this case. So you kind of have to pick your poison at that point. And to just summarize the viewability real quick, I would definitely say that VGA looks the best. It presents the best. I would say CGC is in second place, and then WATA, in my opinion, presents the worst. It just looks way too industrial, way too rugged. While this one looks a little bit sleeker, and this one is like the epitome of sleekness. It's also the thinnest. It's also the smallest. One last thing that I want to add about the cases is that the CGC ones are the only ones that have these divots here that allow you to stack the games and not have them move. Very similar to like how PSA cards or CGC cards stack on top of each other. These guys, they don't have that. I mean, they still like stack fine, but these ones, like, it just stops it from moving, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's just something to note. Otherwise, they all have their pros and cons. So let's just move on to the next thing, which is labels. All right, so for labels, we're going to start with VGA. There are some things that I like about the VGA label, and there's things that I don't. So first of all, I like the black and white color scheme. I think that that is the best color scheme for labels in general, like not just video games. However, at the same time, like there are a lot of cons to this label. So the first one, for example, would be the VGA sticker. I mean, it doesn't even fit on the label here. Very poorly done. The thing that I have the most gripe with is the way that the text is laid out. So something like game cartridge, I don't know why that would be the same size as, for example, the Pokemon Red version or the white ESRB rating logo. Like, I think those two should be of more importance, so they should be bigger in font size. You want to add game cartridge, sure, but like put it at the bottom, for example. I don't know why it would be above Pokemon Red. 1998 Nintendo Game Boy, again, should also be under the title of the game. This type of layout, I just think it wasn't fully thought out. I mean, it can create a lot of complications, especially when you have more specifications about the game. I mean, there's different versions of this game, like there's multiple ones, so it's like, I don't know how like future proof this is. In my opinion, I think that the text is not really well done. I think the background of the label is not very well done. Yeah, I mean, I definitely can say that there's a lot of improvement that has to be done to this label. If you actually take a look at the label itself, it's not even straight on the acrylic. Like if you check this out right here, for example, the space here is bigger than the space here. There's a lot of work that could be done. It just looks very amateurish, but their acrylics are so good, so like they kind of make up for that. Now we're gonna get into the CGC. CGC, I like their font the most. I like the way that their label is laid out the most. It's very similar to the CGC cards, and in my opinion, I think that they have the best layout. So first of all, it's centered. When you have labels, centered labels are always the best ones. When you go left to right, it just doesn't look as clean. It looks very typewriter-ish. And they've done a really good job here where they did, like, you know, Dark Duel Stories, that's the name of the game, and then the specifications go under it in smaller font. So you're not actually giving, for example, Nintendo Game Boy Color 2002 the same level of importance as the game title. I think that that's very important, and I think that the way that the label is laid out, in my opinion, I think it's the best out of all three of them. I also want to compliment their text clarity. So for example, if you put up the VGA label and then you put up the CGC one, there's actually a lot of pixelation in the text here. So I'm not sure if this is due to like the font size or the printing quality, but these ones are crystal clear. Like the writing on the CGC label is super prominent, and in my opinion, I think it's the crispiest. They also have the CGC sticker here. I think that this could be on the back. I think the front of the label should be the cleanest possible, and I'm going to be discussing this in a future video with this new grading company that I really like. Now, their grading system is obviously different here, but 9.8 is pretty much the highest that you're going to get on CGC. It's pretty simple. It's very similar to their comic book grading system, and I appreciate that. The seal type does have the H seam here, and it has the grade A+. Not as important, even though, you know, like you're grading a sealed game, right? Like it should be right up there with the condition of the box, right? But they opted out for like a smaller thing. Maybe it's of less importance to them. Now, the biggest thing that people don't like about CGC is obviously the blue label. In my opinion, I kind of agree. And like I said before, I think white is the best color choice for labels. I mean, look at, for example, how clean the 9.8 looks, right? But then when you stick it onto this like blue background, it just looks very Windows XP. You know what I mean? Now the back, it has the same specifications. Again, I think that this is not really needed. I think the cleaner the label is, the better. This is probably important, and the serial number, I really appreciate the serial number on the back. Can't stand when PSA puts their serial labels here on their PSA cards. Now let's get into the WATA, which is the most complex out of all three of them for sure. Let's get into like the grading scale. So I really like their sticker here, or whatever this is, because it has this like holographic effect. It definitely looks very nice. However, it says COT, so I'm not sure like what that's about. It has GBA, it has Nintendo, it has a seal rating A++ right there, and then it has the specifications, Pokemon Ruby version. Very clean. I like it. I actually like that their like branding is very small. It's not like here where, you know, the branding is bigger than the actual game itself, right? On this one, I think it's very tasteful. Now the back, this is where you get all the information. We have box 9.8, seal A++, first party HSEAM. Not sure what this is. I think this is like the QR code. And then best-selling Game Boy Advance game, along with Pokemon Sapphire. Some features. I really like this actually. I think that this is really creative, and it's a nice way to highlight the game, and I'm glad it's on the back, not on the front. I think that that is the most important thing, because when you display this, you want the front to be as clean as possible. So do I think that this can be improved at all, or is this the perfect label? I think it's really, really good. If I was to improve it, I would do certain things. So the first thing that I would do is, number one, I would fix the way that this label is made. So you can see here, it's just like basically a piece of cardboard that's folded and placed into the acrylic. I'm not a fan of that. Like, that's very cheap. I think that if they made a sticker or something, I think it would have been a lot cleaner. Also, for some reason, by the way, I forgot to mention, this stamp is like $10 for them to put this. Like, it's like, what the heck? But anyway, if I was to change other things, it would probably be the fact that it's like grayscale. I think if they put just pure white, it would have looked fantastic. And then made like the extra features gray, for example, like the WATA certified GBA, Nintendo, etc. I think if those were gray and then the background here was white, it would have looked super clean. But otherwise, I think that this label is really, really nice. It's really clean. The only true con that I would say about it is the font is not clear, and it's actually worse than the VGA one. You can see here it's super pixelated where it says Pokemon Ruby, and there's just a lot of ink bleed happening, and I'm not really a fan of that. I think that if you want to be a premium company, you have to do, you know, premium branding, right? And this is very important to me. Now I want to conclude with just the overall presentation. I would definitely say that VGA has the best cases in terms of form factors and sleekness. Due to the acrylic material that they use, I think that the border holding the game looks a little rough. However, I think that the clarity is fantastic on this. The WATA case has a little bit of malleability to it, because I think that the inside here is plastic while these are acrylic, and this makes it not as viewable. There's just a little bit of fogginess to this one compared to the VGA case. The CGC case itself is pretty much the same material as this thing right here. It has a little bit of squishiness to it, but I don't think it's flimsy. I think that the clarity is a lot better than the WATA one. However, like, nothing really comes close to the VGA. I mean, this is pretty much like what CGC is compared to Beckett or PSA. One really important thing though that goes really understated with WATA is the fact that these guys now have a pop report. For the longest time, they did not have anything like this. These guys still don't. I mean, VGA, man, like, these guys are a mess. I don't know what they're doing. These guys are way older than WATA, and yet for some reason they have not gotten their shit together. CGC, they are a very professional company, and I think in the future they will definitely be bringing pop reports. It's just they're working on it right now. I mean, they brought it for Pokemon cards and Magic cards. They're working on Yu-Gi-Oh, and I'm pretty sure that they're working on pop reports for the video games. They probably just want a lot more data to put in there so that they don't put in, like, you know, the 10 games that they've graded so far. So I think that WATA right now is definitely a leader in the industry, and I think CGC is coming to a close second. These guys, I mean, they had a lot of the market share, but they are definitely losing it day by day. I don't know a lot of people who are still submitting to VGA. A lot of people still stand by them because of the harshness of their grading. However, I personally would never sub to them ever again. So these guys have my money now, and in the future, I'm definitely going to be sending more and more to CGC because I want it to match my comic books as well as my cards. Now, for a hypothetical, if I was to Frankenstein a case, I'll probably choose the VGA form factor in terms of size and acrylic. However, I would definitely use the finish and the overall polish of the WATA games. I would use the CGC label printer as well as the layout for the text, but I would say like the closest thing to a perfect label would be the WATA one with the crispiness of the CGC label pushed to the front so that it's aligned with the game itself. I don't like that the label is pushed to the back. And what's funny about this is that WATA is actually bringing in their new video game cases, and in my opinion, I think these look like home runs. They are changing, however, the material from acrylic to something called polycarbonate, which I'm not really a fan of, because although it's more durable and it withstands like drops more, it loses a lot of clarity, and polycarbonate scratches so easily. It's not like acrylic here where you don't really see it no matter what you do. It might be a better choice to go with acrylic again with their video game cases, but in terms of form factor, man, these new ones look absolutely incredible. I will probably cross over every single game that I have to that new WATA case because I think that they look fantastic. But that's pretty much it. That's my comprehensive overview of every single grading company, who I think you should grade with, WATA and CGC, and who you should not be grading with, which is VGA, until they get their act together. I'm a big fan of the harshness of VGA grading. However, I think that CGC is more fair. I think WATA is a lot easier than the other two in terms of getting those 9.8 A++s, but the overall design, I'm really leaning towards the new WATA cases that they're going to be putting out. If you guys want another video comparison of the new WATA cases lined up against these guys, definitely let me know in the comments down below. Like the video if you enjoyed this presentation, subscribe if you want to see more collector based content, and if you want to support the channel further, I have a Patreon, as well as you can use the links in the description to shop. You can pick up your own garden of binders that I make myself. They're extremely high quality. You'll definitely be impressed. But that's it from me. I hope you enjoyed and I hope you learned something. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.